All right, let's hop on in to learn. Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Summerell, and I am your host. This is your teacher, Miss Christine. Today, we will summarize the moral or lesson of a story. A central message or a moral of a story is often a lesson the author is trying to teach. Miss Christine will tell you the title of our story and our lesson's expectations.
Of course. Today's lesson titled The Hares and the Frogs. By the end of today's lesson, we will be able to identify and write about what happened in the story and find out what lesson was learned from the characters in the story. I hope you're ready to read and write. Let's begin. Miss Summerell, have you learned a lesson before that has made you a better person?
Yes, Miss Christine. I've learned that it is important to keep trying and don't give up, no matter how hard something is. Christine, a lot of stories I have read had lessons the characters learned, so I am glad to be reading another story today that will teach a lesson.
Yes. Miss Summerell, when we read tales, we read to find the central message or moral, just like the lesson you've learned about never giving up. In today's tale, The Hares and the Frogs, the characters will learn a lesson as well.
Is a tale a real story?
A tale is not a real story, especially one that is imaginatively told or made up. Tales teach a valuable lesson wrapped in a story about our society, relationships, and emotions.
You mentioned the word hares in the title. Are we reading a made-up story about the hairs on our heads?
No, not today. This tale will be about the kind of hares that hop around. A hare is an animal also known as a jackrabbit. Hares look like rabbits and are very fast. They are bigger than rabbits and build their homes above the ground.
Really? They build their homes themselves and above the ground? They are some hard-working jackrabbits.
Yes, they are. But we are also reading about frogs too, so keep that in mind. In today's story, we will learn about what the hares and the frogs do at a brook.
At a brook?
Yes, at a brook. The word brook has the oo sound. Say oo after me.
Ooh.
Now, I will count the number of sounds in the word brook using my fingers, and then I will spell the word. B, r, k. There are 4 sounds in the word brook. Brook is spelled B-R-O-O-K. Brook. Now, boys and girls, and Miss Summerell, I would like for you to help with a few more words with the sound. I want you to repeat each word after me, use your fingers to count the number of sounds in the word, spell each word, and then read the word. Here we go. The word is good. Say the word good.
Good.
Count the sounds.
G, d.
How many sounds did you hear in the word good? Did you count 3 sounds?
Yes.
Great. Now let's spell the word.
G-O-O-D.
G-O-O-D. Good. Very good. Now let's spell the word stood. Say the word stood.
Stood.
Count the sounds in the word stood.
D.
How many sounds did you count?
4.
Great job. There are 4 sounds in the word stood. Let's spell the word stood. S-T-O-O-D. Stood. The last word with the sound is look. Say look.
Look.
Count the sounds.
Ooh, ooh, k.
How many sounds did you hear?
3.
Yes, there are 3 sounds in the word look. Let's spell the word look. L-O-O-K. Look. Very good. You did a great job with counting the number of sounds and spelling words with the sound. Now let's read all of the words now that we have practiced each one. We have brook, good, stood, look. Boys and girls, did you realize we talked about the word brook? Do you remember that word? Do you know what a brook is? A brook is a small stream of water. On a hot summer's day, I would like to sit by a brook and maybe read a book. What about you?
Me too. Someday, I will sit by the brook with a bunch of books and relax. Bunch means many things, typically of the same kind, growing or fastened together.
Can you think of a time when you had a bunch of something, boys and girls? What was it? Were you able to share it, or did you keep it all to yourself? When I have a bunch of something, I like to share it, especially when it's food. What about you, Miss Summerell?
That's a great idea. It is good to share when you have many things. When I was younger, I loved sharing my crayons, pencils, paper, and glue sticks.
Now, those are some great items to share. Boys and girls, we just learned 2 important words and their meanings to help us better understand our story. Remember that a brook is a small stream of water, and bunch means many things, typically of the same kind, growing or fastened together. I have a special request for you. Try using words brook and bunch in a sentence throughout the week and share your sentences with a friend. Now, boys and girls, before we read our story, let's practice some words that might be confusing or tricky for us to read. I will say each word. Then I want you to say the word with me. Then you will have a chance to say the words on your own. Here are your words. Do. So. Were. Are. Said. Of. Off. Hair. Scares. Scared. Now, let's read those again together. Do. So. Were. Are. Said. Of. Off. Hair. Scares. Scared. Now, one more time, I want you to try to read them on your own as I point to them. Great job, boys and girls. Which word or words were tricky for you? Try writing the words down so you can practice them later. We will go back over them. When we go over them, write down the ones that are tricky for you. Do, so, were, are, said, of, off, hair, scares, scared. After practicing some of the words that might be confusing or tricky, we will now read the story. We will stop periodically to answer questions about the story, so follow closely along. Are you ready, Miss Summerell?
Yes.
Are you ready, boys and girls? Here we go. Follow as I read the story. The Hares and the Frogs. 3 hares stood in the grass. "I am sad," one of them said. "I wish we were brave." "So do I," said the next one. "But we are not brave. A splash in the brook scares us. The wind in the grass scares us. We are scared all the time." "Yes," said the last one. "It is sad to be a hare." Now let's stop right there, boys and girls, and answer a question based on what we've just read. I want you to continue to look in the story to find your answer. What were some things that scared the hares? You are correct. According to the story, a splash at the brook and the wind scared the hares. Great job. Let's keep reading. This time, I am going to read, and I want you to echo me. That means read the sentences in the story right after me and just like me. Just then, there was a splash in the brook. The splash scared the hares. They ran off to hide. As they ran, they scared a bunch of frogs. "Look," said one of the hares. "The frogs are scared of us." "Yes, they are," said the next hare. "They are scared of us." "Well, I'm glad I am not a frog." "Yes," said the last hare. In the end, it is good to be a hare. Here are a few more questions about the story. Continue to look in the story to find your answers. Who are the main characters in the story?
The main characters in the story are the frogs and the hares.
That's right. Where does the story take place?
According in the story, this story takes place in the woods by a brook.
Very good. Miss Summerell and boys and girls, what happened when the hares run off to hide? Did you find the answer?
Yes, I did. In the story, when the hares run off to hide, they scare a bunch of frogs.
So, what words would you use to describe the hares?
Based on the details in the story, some words I would use to describe the hares are sad and scared.
Yes, the hares were sad and scared. I hope you enjoyed echoing me as I read the story. Now, we will reread the story together from the beginning without stopping, and then we're going to retell or summarize the story using sequencing words describing what happened. We will use the chart behind us to record our thoughts. let's read that story again. The Hares and the Frogs. 3 hares stood in the grass. "I am sad," one of them said. "I wish we were brave." "So do I," said the next one. "But we are not brave. A splash in the brook scares us. The wind in the grass scares us. We are scared all the time." "Yes," said the last one, "it is sad to be a hare." Just then, there was a splash in the brook. The splash scared the hares. They ran off to hide. As they ran, they scared a bunch of frogs. "Look," said one of the hares. "The frogs are scared of us." "Yes, they are," said the next hare. "They are scared of us." "Well, I'm glad I am not a frog." "Yes," said the last hare. In the end, it is good to be a hare. Now that we have read the story for a second time, we can complete our chart. Think about what happened in the beginning of the story using the word once. And write down on a piece of paper what happened. No worries, I'll wait for you to write your thoughts. Did you write, "Once there were 3 hares that were afraid of a splash, the wind, and were scared all the time"? If you wrote this or something similar, you are correct. Now, I need for you to tell a friend or family what happened in the middle of the story using the word next. If you told your family or friend, "Next, the hares heard a splash in the brook and ran off to hide, but scared a bunch of frogs," you are correct again. The hares did scare a bunch of frogs. So, what happened in the end? I will wait for you to write it down. Did you write? In the end, the hares were glad to be hares after scaring the frogs. Yes, they were glad to be hares in the end. Great job again. Miss Summerell, we are not finished with our chart. Can you help us with what this tale tells us?
Sure. This tale tells us to like who we are. We learned that both the hares and the frogs were afraid of something. I like this story, Miss Christine, because we are all different and special in our own way.
Thank you for sharing what this tale tells us, and thank you for your opinion about this story. Boys and girls, on a piece of paper, write whether you liked or disliked this story and tell us why. You can begin your sentence with, "I like this story because," or "I disliked this story because." Now that we have used our sentence starters to help retell the story, let's read the entire summary together. The Hares and the Frogs. Once there were 3 hares that were afraid of a splash, wind, and scared all the time. Next, the hares heard a splash in the brook and ran off to hide. But scared a bunch of frogs. In the end, the hares were glad to be hares after scaring the frogs. Well done. Today we have identified and wrote about what happened in the story from the beginning to the end. And we also found out what lesson was learned from the characters in the story.
Boys and girls, do you remember what lesson we learned?
That's right. We learned that we are special in our own way and to like who we are.
What a great lesson today, Miss Christine. And thank you, boys and girls, for joining us. We have learned so much today, and we hope that you enjoyed every minute of today's lesson.
All rights and credits from this lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these materials.
Have a great day, boys and girls, and we will see you soon. Bye.